Hi, teachers. Good day. Um, Welcome to our three-part series on identifying disabilities within your classroom. And my name is Anusha. I am the head of the Inclusive Education Department. I am also a special educator. I have been in this field for the last 5 to 6 years, maybe going on my seventh year, I'm not sure. And I have worked in a mainstream school for the first 4 years, where it was an inclusive setup. So I've worked with teachers in the classrooms, managing 30 to 35 students and having children with disabilities. So I'm hoping that I can really share some of my experiences as well as the knowledge that I have, that I've learned in school, that I've learned here at Setu with you teachers. The main kind of task or vision for the Inclusive Education Department here at Setu is to be able to work with teachers in all schools in Goa and help you guys figure out how to have an inclusive classroom. So I had a request. We have a teachers WhatsApp group where we support teachers whenever they have challenges and difficulties. And one of the requests from the teachers on that group was to have, coming into the next year, since you are going to be starting the new year in June, going to the next year with just the knowledge of how to identify children who may be at risk of having a disability. So it's not going to be possible for me to complete that in 1 hour, and hence I've split it up into 3 parts. And today is part 1. I am going to be talking about autism. I am going to be sharing screen for most of this session. Today we're going to be talking about identifying children who may be at risk of having a disability. The 3 most common disabilities that we come across a lot at Setu through referrals coming from schools are children who actually have autism, have a specific learning disability, or have ADHD. Now you will notice that I have put at the side of ADHD, not on the list. And that just means that as of today, at least ADHD in India has not been recognized as a disability that receives any sort of concessions from the government. If you go abroad, it is considered a disability in a lot of countries, but not in India. So India has a list of 21 disabilities that are being considered. Sadly, ADHD is not one of them, and hoping going forward in the next couple of years, it does get recognized, at least for concessions. But today, like I said, we're going to be talking about autism. You know, something that I really wanted to start with was this video that I came across that we use a lot over here at Setu. And the reason I thought of showing you this video is because a lot of times we come across these kind of statements when we speak to teachers. Things like it's impossible to handle the student. I don't think they're at a point where they can learn or they're capable of it. Does this child even belong in a regular school or a mainstream school? And of course, when you're in the class and you have so much going on, you know, things like what an attention seeker, oh, they're just being naughty, and all these kind of statements. And it's not uncommon for teachers to think this way, because you guys are handling 30 to 35, sometimes 40 students in a class, or maybe more than that. And that's not easy. I've been in those classrooms. I've seen how tough it is to manage, especially in the pre-primary sections. And so it's okay. It's all right that these thoughts come to your mind once in a while. It's how we deal with these thoughts and how we see things going forward. And so I'd really want to start with this video, which I thought is a beautiful one, to just get you into kind of thinking about autism. Just hearing it from people with autism, children with autism, their views on it and what they go through and what they see the world as and what they would want people to see them as. It's a beautiful thing. And so I really just wanted to start this entire session with that video. Autism, it is not abnormal. It is not dysfunctional. It is just different. every individual is different. I am different. All of you watching this video are different from me and different from one another. And so why do we see autism as something else? Our session today is going to go into first, how do you identify, what do you see and notice in your classroom to help you understand whether this child may be at risk of having a disability. The second is the action steps. So what would you as a teacher do to help these children in class? And third is I'm going to leave a few references that are, I just thought, just some beautiful stuff to read on autism if you're interested. Autism is a neurodevelopmental disability, which means it is a difference in the wiring of the brain of an individual in autism. Everyone's brain is wired in a particular way. And we just need to understand that the way an individual with autism thinks and sees things around them is different from the way we think and see it. Autism affects an individual in 3 skill areas. So we see it in social skills, we see the difference in communication skills, and we see this difference in their behaviors. And autism is not curable. It lasts right up to adulthood, and it's lifelong, okay? So what I'm going to do is talk about autism from the perspective of cases, because I think that's an easier way for us to just understand and relate to what we could see, may have seen, or will see in our classrooms. So case 1 is about Rahul, who is a 4-year-old boy. Rahul is really good at building and constructing things from Lego sets. The teacher notices that Rahul does not look at her when she's talking to him. He avoids looking at her almost as if he's shy. So a lot of times in pre-primary, we have children that we would say are shy because they don't talk to people much or they don't interact with people. However, it has been 3 months since the children have joined school, and he still does not follow instructions that she gives in class. And so she needs to kind of go to him separately and repeat her instructions a couple of times before he follows it. Now, she has barely heard him talk in the last 3 months. She also notices that when it is time to play, he usually takes one toy and he'll sit by himself in the corner, and he doesn't talk to any of the other children, nor does he go near them. She notices when he looks at a storybook, he sometimes tends to smile at himself. But when she asks him about the story or what did he like in the story, he doesn't really respond. So now the teacher is concerned. Okay, so this is a typical nursery classroom, and sometimes we may see children that may display these kind of characteristics. Maybe some of you have already met children and had children in your classroom that did display these kind of characteristics. So in the first few months or the first few weeks, maybe a month or maybe even a month and a half down into school, it's okay for children to kind of still be withdrawn. It's their first time in school. And so they may be shy, but somehow after 3 months, 4 months, you tend to expect them to kind of open up, right? And start interacting with their friends and the teacher. So that's where Rahul is different. Now, this case basically highlights the 2 important behaviors that you see autism, like the characteristics of autism in most, and that is the social interaction of a person and their communication skills. You notice that Rahul does not have a conversation with his teacher. He's very to himself. And a lot of autistic individuals have difficulty in a back and forth conversation. Okay, so either they don't want to talk at all, or they'll have a conversation with you, but it won't really be on the track that you think it's going to go. It usually doesn't really seem very common when they start having conversations with you. It doesn't seem very like something someone would talk about much. Differences in the need to share personal interests or emotions. So they are not very good at expressing their emotions. Okay. They may not express their personal interests to you. They may be very, we use the word introvert, and that's what sometimes you see individuals with autism are. And it's not necessary that they cannot communicate. A lot of autistic individuals can communicate, they just don't know how to communicate what's in their mind. They have differences in understanding and responding to social cues. So these are social cues, your eye expressions, your body language, the tone of your voice, when you're happy, when you're sad, facial expressions. All of these are social cues that we learn as we grow older, right? From toddlers to adulthood. We keep learning how people express themselves, and then we understand. But a lot of individuals on the spectrum find it very, very hard to understand these social cues and what they mean. Differences in developing and maintaining relationships and friendships. So one is they find it hard to make friends. They may have one good friend, but maybe not have more than that. And sometimes if they have friends, they don't know how to maintain those relationships. Okay. So let's move on to case 2. Now, here is Sam. He's a 6-year-old boy in senior KG. So now this is a case that's different from Rahul, who was just 4 years old. Sam is a really bright boy academically. He's good at reading, better than the rest of the students in his class. He has a lot of information about planets and solar systems, and he likes talking about it. So now you had Rahul, who didn't speak much, but here you have Sam, who likes talking about planets. And this brings me back to when I mentioned they have differences in the way they have back and forth conversations. So keep that in mind when we go ahead with Sam's case. When he is with his classmates in recess, you will usually notice him talking to them about planets, but not playing with them when they go out to play. And he doesn't like it when his friends touch him. And often the teacher sees him shouting when they come close to him. He prefers to sit in class during recess and sports time. Teacher also notices him closing his ears sometimes when the school bell rings or when he's in music class. So that is Sam. Now, so Sam, you will notice a lot of communication differences as compared to Rahul. In Sam's case, you will also notice something such as hobbies and passions that come up and repetitive patterns of behavior. Okay. So repetitive patterns of behavior can be things like hand flapping, playing with their fingers, could be rocking, could be toe walking, could be spinning. Now these we call, they are repetitive behaviors, yes, because they occur again and again. And in Sam's case, the repetitive behavior, if you're wondering, would be him talking about planets. That's also his passion and hobby. Okay. So because he likes it so much, he'll constantly talk about it. But also because of his communication differences, he does not know how to talk about anything else different. So you see how all three are kind of meshed in when it comes to Sam. Now coming back to stims, such as hand flapping, toe walking, spinning. Stims is something that all of us as individuals do. You do it, I do it. When we are nervous, when we're anxious, when we are bored. Sometimes, some of us, I have this habit of keeping my leg over my other leg, and I'll constantly just shake it up and down. And I don't realize I'm doing it. I've noticed women who have this habit of like spinning their hair when they're talking to people. I've noticed a lot of people just flipping their pens, in the corner of their chair. And these are all stimming behaviors. So stimming behaviors are regulatory behaviors. They're things that we do that help us focus better or help us just stay on track, or it's something we do when we're thinking a lot, right? So stimming behaviors are not bad. You see a lot of stimming behaviors in individuals with autism. Speaking in a very unique way. A lot of children have a slight accent. Or they have this very typical cartoonish way of talking. So, they'll speak like their favorite cartoon character, or they'll speak like what they're constantly watching. And a lot of our English series are basically British or American series, right? So they pick up these slight accents sometimes. Intense passions and activities that may seem uncommon. So, for example, Rahul, 4 years old, but he likes Lego sets and he's really good at building it. So, when the teacher and I conversed, we noticed that he was just constantly playing with Lego sets. So they have these intense passions. In case of Sam, it was about, planets. So something to keep in mind when we're observing our children. Expressing their sensory responses or emotions uncommonly. So in Sam's case, when people come close to him, instead of telling them that he needs his space and to kind of maintain that distance, he tends to shout. That's his way of communicating. So a lot of times you'll notice them expressing themselves in a very uncommon way. And most of the times this happens when there are sensory things coming their way that they're not able to take in. They could be oversensitive to certain things like noise, touch, smell, or they could be undersensitive to things. Okay. So usually when sensory issues are at its peak, when sensory challenges are coming up, that's when you see them having overt behaviors that we notice that are uncommon. I gave you two case studies, one of a 4-year-old who barely spoke and one of a 6-year-old who spoke so much, but spoke specifically about one particular thing. So you can see autism it's called a spectrum because no two individuals are the same. And they can go and range from individuals who don't communicate at all to individuals who are very communicative, individuals who don't want to socialize at all to individuals who like socialization. So they can fall anywhere on that scale. Okay. Now, as a teacher, if you see a child with who you think may display characteristics of autism, you need to know a couple of things about their assessments. So one is it can be detected and assessed 18 months onwards. And I'm not sure, maybe even earlier now. Assessments need to be done by a professional at either in Goa, we have the DEIC in Mapsa, we have one DEIC in Margao, and we have the PNRC in Bambolim, or by a developmental pediatrician. And usually professionals will use an ADOS test, or they will use the DSM-5, which is a diagnostic statistical manual, to assess the child for autism. There are communication differences, social differences, sensory differences, behavior differences. 30 to 35 students in my class. What do I do? So much. And I get it. And most of you probably are thinking that right now. You guys have a lot on your plate. So I get it. And so today I'm just going to give you simple things that you can do, which is for the whole classroom. You don't need to necessarily do it just for that one child that you notice having a difficulty. You can do it for the whole classroom, and it will in some way help that child, no matter what, who the child is, whether the child has a disability, does not have a disability, it doesn't matter. All children deserve our respect. Okay. We need to understand that every individual is different. No two teachers are the same, and so no two children are the same. What works with one child won't work with another child necessarily. The way one child behaves, you can't expect other children to behave that way. We need to be sensitive to some children might have extra needs or some challenges that need to be addressed, which may make them more different than their peers. They may need a little bit more support. So we need to be sensitive about that fact and give them that respect that they deserve. And your kindness and your respect and your understanding, sensitivity towards them does not only help them, it helps their families so much. It makes a big difference to their parents and their families. Children cannot succeed without the combination or the co-working between a teacher and a parent. So when you notice that a child has some challenges in your class, how do you communicate this to the parent? And this is a challenge for most of us. It doesn't matter if we're in a school or we're a center, we're a doctor, it is a challenge to communicate to a parent that we've noticed something different in your child. So how can you do it? So one is fix a meeting and thank the parents for taking the time to come and see you. Everybody likes to be appreciated. And it's always nice to start with a bit of appreciation towards the parents. Bring to their notice everything positive that you have noticed about their child. So start on a positive note. You're thanking them for coming in. You're highlighting everything positive you noticed. Sam is so good a reader. He is better than the rest of the children in his class. And I make him stand up and read for all of us because he's so good at it. Or Rahul, is really good with Lego sets. I've seen him make these beautiful constructions out of the Lego sets. And I've not seen other children do that. And he's really good at that. So start with the positives. It always lightens their mind because, of course, the parents are coming in worried about what the teachers are going to say about their child. Talk about your observations after that. So start on a positive note and then talk about what are some of the things that you've noticed in the last couple of months that are a little uncommon in the child. And then suggest what could be the next steps. When you talk about the observations that you have made and you're telling the parent that these are the things you've noticed that are uncommon, it's always nice to check in with them and to kind of ask, are you on the right track? Is this something that they have noticed at home as well? Do they agree with what you've said? Because then you kind of also get a feedback from them on where they're at and what are their thoughts. Then ask them, considering all of these challenges, would you mind me suggesting some of the things that you can do? They're, of course, going to say, yes, tell me. So next, you suggest steps, which is, of course, taking them for an assessment or just taking them to their developmental pediatrician just to check how they're doing. And the last thing is to assure them of your continuous support, irrespective of what those results say, that you are going to continually be there for them, for the child, and you're going to do your best to help them and the child in your class. Now, what can you do in your classroom? Now, again, just to keep in mind, this is for all children. It's not only for that child with disability in your class or with challenges. This is called a visual aid or a visual support. All of us have timetables in our classroom, but we tend to have timetables that just have words on them. It's always really nice to have big timetables and have pictures that indicate what that word means. Okay, so for example, circle time, you have children sitting in a circle. It's bathroom time, you have the picture of bathroom. If it's snack time, you have a picture of snacks and children eating. So children looking at the picture know exactly what it means, even though they can't read it or they may not speak the same language and understand it. This is called total communication, something that we're really talking about a lot nowadays. I am saying it, I'm showing it in the form of a picture, I'm also actioning it. So, showing it, saying it's circle time, let's make a circle now. So you're doing all of that. And children respond really well to total communication. And the good thing about total communication is that you are addressing children coming from multilingual backgrounds. So you have someone who speaks Kannada in your class, you have someone that speaks Marathi or speaks Konkani, speaks English, speaks Hindi, and they're all in that one class where you speak one language. So they may not understand you, but they're looking at those pictures and getting it. So use a lot of visuals, and it helps just structure the routine as well. Once you're done with it, take it off, put it in a finished box, and the child knows what's coming next. If you notice a child in your class having noise sensitivity, help them manage that. These are the various ways in which you notice children showing their sensitivity, closing their ears, putting paper or something else in their ears, or just shouting or running away from the class, wanting to escape the class. So many ways in which they can react. So when you notice this happening and it rings that bell that it might be noise sensitivity, help them by trying to maintain a low voice in the class, a low tone of voice in the class, which I know is really hard because you're working with so many students. And so many in the pre-primary, it's just so loud everywhere. But what you can do is then help your child down that sound or dim that sound out by giving them noise cancellation headphones that you can request the parents to buy, or asking the parents to buy these little earplugs that go in the ear. So it reduces the input of the noise and they can still hear you and it sounds just all right to them. If you see children who are up when you're doing something and they're doing group work, this child is standing constantly, or they're probably moving around at the back of their group, it's okay, teachers. Allow them to do that. If they're not disturbing the class, if they're not disturbing the group, if they're not causing noise and trouble to anyone around or the activity, then allow them to do it. A lot of times pacing up and down allows people to focus. And so you'll see a lot of older children when they're learning for their board exams and stuff like that, they'll be walking up and down and learning. A lot of children put music and they learn. And I used to wonder, how do they do that? But I've started to realize that people have different ways of regulating themselves and different ways of being able to focus. So if you realize that this is your child's way of focusing, allow them to stand, no problem. They don't always have to sit, or allow them to, lean against the wall, or allow them to, pace at the back of the class. It's okay. Good instructions and short instructions are short instructions. So when you are giving a lot of instructions to the class, open your book, page 9, chapter 10. You can actually hold the book up. So take out your English book and then look around, wait for children, then open the page and say, open to page 9 and then chapter 10. So you're making it visual, keeping in mind total instructions. So you're making it very visual, you're showing it, you're instructing it auditorily. And so children are more able to follow up. And I'm just imagining a child who speaks Kannada at home, but is looking at what you're showing them and just looking into their bag and picking up and opening to that page. So total communication makes a huge difference. Keeping your instructions short and, not running with your words kind of helps children understand better. This is something that I came across on a website. I am unable to remember sequences. If I ask for directions at a gas station, I can only remember 3 steps. Directions with more than 3 steps have to be written down. So they have to be visual for this autistic adult. And again, use visuals. Use a lot of visuals. Line up, listen, deep breath, stand up, walk, wait. You can have visuals for all of this. And you can just have it on a little keychain and just flip it when you want to use it and have them big A4 size so that the whole class can see them. And you're addressing everyone. You can even make visuals, a timetable as small as just a first and then. You see this one here on the right? So timetables can be as small as this. Giving choices to not only individuals who are autistic, but any child with a disability or even children that speak different language from what you are speaking makes things easier. Limiting choices to just 2 choices, maximum 3 choices, and making it visual. So what do you want? Do you want a red color, blue color? Do you want a triangle, a square? Do you want a chip or a juice? So just doing that helps them communicate better. Those are the little tips and strategies that I wanted to share with you. I've explained to you a little bit of how autism looks like in the classroom. The government has this checklist. The Department of Education has created this checklist. It's called the Prashast. And it has been made specifically for schools and general teachers in a mainstream classroom. The Prashast is a manual, it's a booklet, and it has all the 21 disabilities highlighted in it. And each section covers a particular disability. So 13.1 to 13.9 or 10 in the booklet covers autism and characteristics of autism. So as a teacher, while you're observing children, you can actually look for these things and mark it. Does the student have difficulty making eye contact? Does the student repeat my words? Do they not interact with their friends? Do they find it difficult to deal with sudden changes, going from, the playground to the class to the playground? And so on. So you have everything written down there for you. And you can just open the booklet. If you notice any of these things, start marking. You know where to mark and what to mark for. So this is something that you can keep for yourself. This also helps in then doing a further referral. So once you've noticed that the child meets all these criteria, now I need to probably speak to the parents, call them in for that meeting, and ask them to take the child in for a checkup. Prashast has been made for regular school teachers because you'll observe children over a period of time. So you can mark it in with more precision. Main thing to keep in mind, and that's in general, and Prashast highlights that as well, is to always keep note of the language. Is the child struggling because of language issues? Because they speak Kannada at home, you're speaking English, or they speak Kannada, you're speaking Konkani, or they speak Marathi, you're speaking Hindi. Is it because of the language that they're not able to follow instructions? Keep that in mind before jumping to any conclusions. Prashast is a screening tool. It's not meant as a diagnostic tool. You cannot tell the parent that your child has autism because I marked it on Prashast. No, it is just a screening tool to say the child might be at risk. And so it's just nice to take the child for a checkup. Yeah, that's about it. I think I've covered all the points. So these are some references that I really liked. Reframing Autism is a really nice website. This is a special link in that website for educators and teachers. And I thought it was really beautifully written. The Art of Autism is an illustration of a young boy talking about his autism. And it's a really short one, and it's really nice. And of course, I'm putting here the link for Prashast, which is a free downloadable PDF. Thank you so much for watching this video.